Hey everybody, it's your boy Carlos here,
And Joseph.
and this is the
The
passenger
passenger
seat.
seat. Woo!
All right, hey riders, and welcome back to the passenger seat. In today's episode, we are going back to the early 2000s
Yeah, again.
again. We are gonna talk about an anime that was part of our childhood growing up, and I guess considered one of the greatest animes or mangas of the anime universe or whatever.
It was definitely popular. Like it really took over when it came out. I want to say, yeah, it was a lot of hype for when it was out, and it was competing with obviously things like Naruto, and it was competing with One Piece and Bleach, which was also out around that time. So yeah, it had its moment.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we're talking about Death Note.
Yep. Yeah, man. Death Note.
Death Note. I know it's a manga series, and it was an anime also. I personally did not get a chance to read the manga series. Obviously heard really great things about it, but remembering of Death Note was it always came from the anime.
Mm.
I don't know if you ever had a chance to read the manga.
I think maybe I read a little bit. Honestly, I was same case. I was more hooked on the anime for sure. Um, and again, I don't think I read the whole manga. I read pieces like here and there. I well, we'll get into that part later. But yeah.
But yes, I guess we'll talk about the synopsis of it, which is basically the same synopsis that you would get from the manga and the anime. And our story, well, it's about a boy. What is he, like 17, something
Yeah,
like that?
he's a high schooler. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
With anime, like these kids are like they look way older than their actual age.
that's true.
Yeah.
And I think he's around. He's just kind of not. He's not socially awkward, but he thinks himself of a higher degree than the rest of the people he goes to high school with because his IQ is super high.
Yeah, so he's super intelligent. Obviously, we're talking about the protagonist, Light Yagami. Um, he is like all around 4.0, a genius level student who's basically just bored
Yes.
with life. He's just above everybody, and he thinks like his intellect makes him see everybody else as below him.
Yes, he's actually very arrogant. But the funny part is, it has that weird like Clark Kent Superman thing of around people he won't act that way. He'll act super nice. He'll act like a really great guy and stuff like that, and very understanding. But behind the curtains, he was just I guess just a jerk,
A
if
jerk.
you want to say it like that.
A jerk is
And
a
one day he came out of high school, and a book dropped from the sky, right? I think in front of him, and it was
um
completely black.
yeah. So he was in school. He was at class, and he saw it from
Oh, he saw it drop. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. It was he saw it through the window. It was falling from the sky, hit the ground, and he was like perplexed. And once he got out of school, he was walking by and he casually noticed the notebook still on the ground, and he decided to pick it up out of curiosity. Um, so a good thing to or an important thing to note about the notebook and where it came from. So in this show, we get presented with the realm of the Shinigamis or Death Gods,
Yes.
and basically they the Death Gods also get bored because they live um, for eternity, basically, um, under certain conditions, which we'll get more into. But yeah, they get bored living these long lives, and one Shinigami in particular, called Ryuk, got so bored he decided to drop
The
Uh,
Death Note.
the Death Note, which all Shinigamis have. And Ryuk's bored because, well, he sees that the rest of Shinigami only just go, get what they need, come back, and then they just live a dull life of doing the same thing over and over again. And he wants to spice things up a bit.
And at this point in the story, well, I guess to fast forward to it, Light begins to uncover exactly what's written in the Death Note. There's a lot of names, scratched off, and a lot of rules. Which the Death Note contains a various amount of rules to what you can and cannot do with the Death Note. And I think at this portion in his room, Ryuk shows up. What's up? And basically scares him. Well,
Hey, it's me,
sort of scares him.
your boy.
And Ryu basically explains more of what the Death Note is, what he can do and stuff like that. And Light, being the type of, I guess, person who thinks he's above all the other humans, he loves the fact that he has all this power in his hands.
Yeah.
And begins to use it on criminals.
Yes. So Light Yagami has a god complex. And this god complex compels him to basically rid the world of evil. He wants to become a force above the law. He wants to become a force of judgment, in a sense. And yeah, that's his main goal. He starts killing off. Starts off with major criminals. Basically that the world wouldn't care about, and then it goes from the higher tier all the way down to, like, more petty criminals and stuff like that. This turns in to a detective sort of story, right?
Yes, that's actually true.
Because obviously the world starts to notice that people are out of nowhere just starting to die, right? And detectives...
Also to note, this is where he picks up the alias Kira.
Kira,
goes
yes.
by Kira.
Obviously, because he's doing this anonymously, the notebook is giving him supernatural power to kill people without having to show his face or, reveal his identity. So people, they start getting like this feeling like, oh, this is the work of somebody. And so they gave him the alias of Kira, which translates into killer. And yeah, he pretty much takes hold of that name place. And again, eventually detectives start to obviously get wind of this, and they start to delve deeper into what's going on. And that brings us to, I wouldn't say an antagonist.
It's actually really funny about Death Note too is the fact that the antagonist is the person you're watching throughout the show, and the, I guess, quote unquote good guy is portrayed in the show like the antagonist to the actual bad guy, which is like in reverse. So you get to see the story through the bad guy's eyes.
Yep. And the good guy, quote unquote good guy, that is a genius detective, fitting to rival a genius person with a god complex. And we're talking about
L, which is this. I believe he's also 17. He's a little bit older. I think he's around his 20s.
Yeah.
And he's again genius, but he's so genius that he has very low social skills. I guess if you want to say it like that, he's very odd. He's a very odd guy.
Yeah, he's. I don't think it's because he's a genius. I just think that's the way he is in general. Just his social skills were never really developed, and yeah, it just caused him to be sort of recluse in his ways.
Yeah, he was such a good character too. He was a very, very interesting character.
He was really odd.
Basically, the general synopsis of this is throughout the whole story, from what we gave you throughout the whole story, it's going to be like a cat and mouse type of situation throughout the anime.
Yeah, and I think what made Death Note super interesting was the fact that, okay, it's a detective show, which, as the years progress, I think a lot of people and a more mature audience found really interesting, because nowadays everybody loves crime shows. Um,
Yes.
and so it was super interesting to see that in an anime perspective, and the fact that you had this supernatural aspect to it. You could play around so much with that, and they did. And I think that's what made it super interesting because how do you face an evil that you can't put a face and a name to, you know?
Hmm.
And
It,
that's what made it, particularly interesting for me.
it was definitely one of those animes that I believe if someone were to, as an anime watcher, at least back in the day, it was one of those things where someone gives you that idea, and all of a sudden you think, "Oh, that's gonna be boring." But once you start watching the anime, they find ways to get you in, and they
Hmm.
all with all the suspense and if they're gonna catch him or not, and it actually becomes really intriguing, even though there's not action.
Yeah.
There's no action. There's no combat like some of the animes that you see. It was
Y-
it was very much just like if you created a crime show in real life. It just kept you intrigued.
Yeah. So it's not a typical shonen. What made it super interesting, I think, if you're gonna have a character or two who are geniuses, you have to do genius level writing. And I think that's what made the show really interesting because when you see the twists and turns and the things that they would come up with, the plans they would come up with, how Light was super methodical with the way he you know brought about the killing, um, and the lengths that L would go to try and figure out who this person was. You were really astounded sometimes because at least I think personally in my young age when I was watching Death Note, the things that they would come up with, I was super surprised. I'm like, wow, I'd never think of something like that.
Yeah, I definitely love the way that Light would do his killings was very interesting because just like you mentioned, it was very much thought out. It was like one of those things where he couldn't just you don't write the name and then all of a sudden they die. He's actually started thinking about how they should die, who's next to them, all this stuff just for it not to lead back to him.
Hmm.
And it was just the interesting ways on how he would do that. And obviously throughout the story, um, he's trying to uh, kill L. So trying to
Yeah,
figure out that part too.
yeah, exactly. They're pretty much both playing a game of guess who.
Yeah, he was actually with the Death Note. There was all the rules included. He was actually there was moments where he was able to control people to do stuff for him before
Hmm.
they died.
It's super interesting how they played around with that for sure. Um, yeah, so for me, Death Note when I was growing up and I was obviously getting into the world of anime, Death Note for me was uh it was definitely one of the most impactful animes for me because I I don't know, my sort of style growing up, I sort of liked being the more intellectual type person. You know how there's cliques and stereotypes and stuff. Like maybe you're a jock, maybe you're the popular kid, maybe you're like the nerd, and um, trying to be uh, smart, I guess. I really liked how the show played to what I thought were my strengths, and yeah, I really enjoyed it because of that. And it was different from the rest. It was different from Naruto. It was different from Bleach. It was different from Soul Eater. All these shows
Eh,
that have action, and you just get fed the same thing constantly. Having a change of tone is really, really nice and an adaptive
yeah,
way to get people into watching anime.
definitely one of the most famous animes, at least in my perspective. It falls under the ranks of all the other animes you've mentioned, garnering live action movies, other spin off mangas. Obviously, it had quite a few things that it was able to come out with because of the popularity that it garnered. Even though the original manga series was not that long, and also the anime was not that long, but it was just one of those that just blew up. And everybody was watching it.
Hmm.
Everybody wanted to find out what would happen, and I think that's what made it really cool.
Death Note did release like a one-shot manga. It wasn't light, it wasn't L. It was past all that time, And I'm not a political guy. I really don't care about politics or anything like that. But funny enough, in this one shot, Donald Trump has an appearance, and he actually gets the death note.
Yeah. Oh, at the end, yeah.
Dude, that was a wild twist, bro.
Yeah, I don't know what the writer was doing with that one, but it was very interesting.
It first of all, seeing Donald Trump in manga version is probably the most hilarious thing I've seen in a long time. It's it's just comical. I don't know. It's hilarious. But yeah, if y'all are fans of Death Note and y'all haven't heard about that one, please go check that out. It's a pretty funny one shot. I mean, not just funny, interesting too. But yeah,
And if you guys are fans of Death Note, or at least haven't heard of it, please go and pick up the mangas, watch the animes. I believe it's still showing like on Funimation, I think, or even I'm not sure if it's on Netflix. I think it used to be on
it
Netflix.
used to be. I think it might still be. I don't know. I don't know how long the
Just
contracts last
if
with
you go on
Netflix.
Netflix, try not to pick the live action movie. Just pick the cartoon. Um, but definitely check it out. It's very interesting. It'll keep you intrigued. We tried really hard not to spoil anything on here because it takes away from it if you spoil stuff.
Yeah,
It really
plus
does.
it's a short anime too, so if you spoil something, you would just might spoil the whole thing.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's our time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Uh,
Comment down below what you think your favorite dessert that L was eating throughout the anime. What do you think his favorite
yeah,
dessert was, or what was your favorite dessert that you saw there?
I don't know how he didn't have any teeth. Like his
Dude, I
teeth were
know.
like perfect.
All he ate were sweets. It was ridiculous.
Sweets, yeah, that's true. And
And
all the kids in the classroom who would imitate him sitting on the desk, like
sir, I was one of those kids. Yeah, I don't know. He would eat sweets and still be slim. That's like every person's dream.
definitely.
Incredible. Anyways, we hope you enjoyed this video today, and hopefully you'll join us for the next ride here in the
The
passenger
passenger
seat.
seat.